Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Wednesday. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're not too nervous wherever you're watching or you're listening to this around the world, because it is a massive, massive day. There's no other way of saying it, is it? It is just huge what we've got coming up later. The Champions League semi-final, second leg, the chance to book the spot in the final to play Inter Milan, which we will talk about a little bit later on this show. What an unbelievable night of football that was at San Siro last night. So we know it's Inter Milan, either PSG or Arsenal. Who is it going to be booking their spot in the final tonight? Fingers crossed. It is Arsenal. We're going to talk about that in today's show. Of course we are. This is the big. There's nothing else to talk about. You know, it doesn't get bigger than this. It's only the third time in Arsenal's history Arsenal being in the Champions League semi-final. It's the first time since 2009. They're aiming to get to the final for the first time since 2006. It just doesn't happen every single day, does it? It doesn't. It's a rarity. Arsenal, unfortunately, are not like Real Madrid when it comes to this competition. We do not have a good record in it. But chance to make history tonight. Absolutely. Massive. It is massive. So, right, let's get stuck into it, shall we? And before, I'm going to talk... there's loads of stuff to talk about from the press conference last night from Declan Rice's comments. I thought Declan Rice was brilliant last night in his press conference. Absolutely. There's no better speaker than Declan Rice. Maybe Bukayo Saka is up there as well, but you want someone to come out and say the right stuff. You put Declan Rice up there, and he was brilliant. So we're going to go over what he had to say, look at what Mikel Arteta had to say. We'll do the predicted 11. Lots of you guys getting in touch ahead of the game as well, of course. And we will talk about Inter Milan win against Barcelona. But just to sort of start it off, obviously the team news from yesterday, I was down at the training session yesterday. I saw Jurriën Timber. Sorry, I keep saying Jurriën. It is Jurriën Timber, as many of you pointed out in the comments yesterday. It is with the Dutch J, which kind of sounds like the Y. So it's Jurriën Timber. He was back yesterday and was in training. Ricardo Calafiori, of course, training as well, which is a real boost for Arsenal. Mikel was asked about them in his press conference yesterday in Paris. He said on Timber's fitness, he said, I will assess him today, whether he can start the game or not. And Calafiori being back, he said, yes, he's travelled, he's fit, he's ready to play when we need him. So that's great news, obviously. Now, look, I'm not expecting Calafiori to start today. He might well come on. But, you know, it's still good to have him back, even if there aren't just a few games left of the season now. But it's good for the squad. And look, if Arsenal get through tonight and get themselves a spot in the final, then, you know, having Calafiori back is going to be great. On Timber, look, he's going to start. I would be stunned if Timber doesn't start this game. Really surprised, unless this injury and what he's come back from is something significant enough to really sort of hamper him tonight. He starts this game. So that's the latest team news. Obviously, from PSG side of things, we know Dembele's training. Enrique saying that he is going to be fit to play as well. That was the big sort of news coming from the PSG side of things. Now, Declan Rice was with Mikel yesterday at the press conference in Paris. And as I said, I thought he absolutely nailed it in terms of the way he spoke, the sort of the level of calmness he kind of showed during that press conference, but also how sort of determined he came across, and that sort of he just had that real sort of glint in his eye that he was confident that Arsenal can turn things around. It's going to be incredibly difficult, no doubt about it. We've left ourselves in a really difficult position after that game last week when we left ourselves a bit of a mountain to climb, and it is going to be a really difficult night for Arsenal. But just listening to Declan talk yesterday, it was hard not to come away from it without thinking, you know what, we do have a chance. It is going to be difficult. Things are going to have to go our way. We're probably going to have some luck. You know, decisions are going to have to go our way. The referee's going to have to be strong in Paris and all that sort of stuff. But putting all that to one side, if Arsenal can play well, they can keep their heads, they can play themselves into game, they're going to have a chance tonight. And Declan was asked about sort of the Real Madrid and what that can do, and whether the sort of free kicks, those sort of big moments, you know, someone's going to have to produce that sort of thing. And Declan said, look, the manager calls them magic moments. He always talks about someone delivering a magic moment. I think in the game against Madrid, obviously, I was able to produce 2 free kicks, which was incredible. But tonight, a semi-final, it's set up for someone else maybe to get that magic moment. Hopefully it's me again, but you're going to need a moment of magic to win a game. And as a team, we're ready to do that. The way they move the ball between the lines, PSG was really smart. But once we work that out, and how we could beat them. We missed a few chances in terms of how we're driving the ball, giving our wingers one-on-one opportunities. Chances started to open up. I think tonight we need to do the same. We need to have big balls, and we need to go out there on the biggest stage and show that we're ready to play at this level. And continue to say that obviously for the next few years going forward, I just want to help this club. We were so close the last few years to winning the Premier League. We were in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. Now we're in the Champions League semi-final. The next step for us is to win trophies. I sense that we're close, but to get over the line, you have to win that first one. I feel like they're starting to come in for sure. We have such a good group, but we need to keep believing and being positive. We can go out there and we can achieve something great for this club, and that's what we want to do. We obviously know we're 1-0 down, but we have full belief, full positivity that we're going to go out there and win. We're really positive we can come here and do something special. I thought it was really, really good. As I said, it was calm, it was measured, it was thought out, and I just think it set the right tone. It might have no impact. Obviously, you know, what's going to matter tonight is how the players perform on the pitch. It doesn't matter what someone says in the press conference 24 hours earlier. But it's still, I think, for the players watching it back home, back at the hotel, which I'm sure they probably were, they would have seen clips of it. For fans watching, I think it's kind of, it was really, really good stuff from Declan Rice. As I said, there's just no one better to really send out. I wasn't surprised he was the player that was picked to go out and do the press conferences. He spoke as well about Martin Odegaard and the captaincy and the criticism Odegaard's had coming to him. He spoke really well about Thomas Partey as well, and that sort of relationship that the two of them have. On Partey, he said, I think playing with Thomas, I realised that one of the best things about him on the pitch is how calm he is with a football and the calmness he brings to the team. It's really special to play with a player like him. Before I came to Arsenal, there was so much talk about how good he is. He doesn't always get the recognition he deserves, though, but playing with him allows me to be a better player with the way he plays, which I thought was really sort of good there from Partey, from Rice on Partey. And the two of those are going to be so important. Obviously, having Thomas Partey back today, which we didn't have in the first leg, is going to, you would hope, improve things, certainly in the midfield. It's going to just bring a little bit more physicality to the team because you're going to have Rice, you're going to have Partey, Rice and Marino, kind of Saliba, Partey, Rice, Marino as that spine of the team. There's more physicality there. It gives you opportunities to sort of drive forward, as Declan Rice was saying in those first comments about how Arsenal did start to open PSG up once they got to grips of the game. In the first leg was when they were driving through the central areas with him setting up the chance for Trossard, Miles Lewis-Skelly setting up the chance for Martinelli. So having Partey back, I think, is going to be really, really important for Arsenal today. On Odegaard and the sort of criticism that he's been receiving this season and his form and that sort of stuff, he said, look, he's our leader, he's our captain, he trains every single day, he plays every minute of every game. He's one of the best lads I've seen away from the pitch in terms of how he lives his life. He's got the full respect to the dressing room, the way he demands, the way he drives the team, the way he speaks. You wouldn't see him as that type of character, but he really is behind the scenes. He's been amazing for us, and I wouldn't want anyone else being our captain. I think the lads feel the same way as me about that. Obviously, everyone has dips in form. I've had different dips in form before. It doesn't matter because he can deliver on the biggest stage. And tonight, I'm sure he will. We're ready, and we're always with Martin because he is one of our best players. Good comments again, I thought, from him on Partey and on Odegaard. And yeah, I thought it was really, really good. So just a really good press conference at the right time for Arsenal. Again, it probably might end up meaning nothing, but you know, Arsenal go on and win. Who knows? It could look back at this time, the way he spoke to the media, the way he gave the message and delivered the message. I just thought it set the right tone for tonight. So really good stuff from Declan Rice. I saw someone, I think I've got the comment here actually, have I? As Elizabeth said, just watch Rice speak in the press conference. So glad it was him to answer these questions. Sometimes when players do their media duties, their answers feel so rehearsed, which I totally understand since some don't like the camera. But when players like Declan and Saka speak, it feels genuine and honest. Still nervous for tomorrow, but Rice made me feel excited for this game. Time to make the dream come true. Come on, you Gunners. I thought that was a really good comment from Elizabeth, and I'm sure there's plenty others who feel just like her after watching Declan Rice. I certainly did, I have to say. Right, on what Mikel was saying at his press conference, he was asked on the belief to turn things round, and he said, huge enthusiasm, huge energy. We're a win away from being in the Champions League final in one of the most beautiful cities in the world against a great opponent. It doesn't get much better than that. We are here to make history. We have a big opportunity. We bring a result that gives us so much clarity about what we have to do. A lot of learning from the first leg as well, how small the margins are between the teams. The result, in my opinion, should have been very different to the one it was last week. So tonight, another opportunity to prove that and to earn the right to be in the final. On if it's the biggest game as Arsenal manager, he says yes, one of the most beautiful for sure. I mean, we're one win away from being in the final. We cannot ask for anything else. Let's not do the talking now. Let's do it tomorrow on the pitch at 9 p.m. when the game starts. Show our best version, and win the game. As he said, it doesn't get much better. It doesn't get much bigger. Arsenal do have the chance to make history tonight. We're all going down to it. We've had a difficult week. No doubt about it. The semi-final, the first leg last week was a bit of an anticlimax because of what happened and how the game panned out and how the game started. Then we've taken that into the Bournemouth game, which was obviously a disappointing result as well. But you've got a chance to turn that all around to basically erase it. Win tonight. No one cares about Bournemouth. No one cares about the first leg. Everyone's just dreaming of Munich in a few weeks' time. That's the opportunity Arsenal have in front of them tonight. As I said at the start, it's going to be incredibly difficult. Are they favourites to do it? Absolutely not. PSG's favourites? Yes, and understandably so. But that doesn't mean Arsenal can't do it. It's going to be tough. No doubt about it. But they absolutely can do it. It's just a case of keeping their head, performing well, being clinical. As Mikel always says in Champions League games, being clinical in both boxes. No stupid mistakes at the back. Ride out the early storm. I think the analysts have been looking at it, and the no team across all of Europe starts the game as hot and with as much intensity as PSG do, home or away. We found that out to our cost last week in the first leg. And tonight's going to be even more difficult, I think, in terms of how PSG are going to come out the blocks. Arsenal just got to play themselves into the game, stay in it. The last thing they need to do is concede early, and then it will be an absolute mountain to climb. But you stay in the game, take the sting out of their attacks, settle into it, and then see what you can do. I said it yesterday, 0-0 at half-time, I will be perfectly happy with. Arsenal don't need an early goal today. They don't have to go gung-ho chasing the game, anything like that. They do not. 0-0 at half-time is absolutely fine. Obviously, I prefer 1-0 or 2-0, but 0-0 is fine. You're still in the game. And then let's see what happens in the second half. And I thought they've got to be professional. They've got to not get caught up in the moment tonight. I think that's really, really important, just to stay in the game. So predicted 11-wise, I think it's relatively easy. I can't see it being any different to this. No, I don't see Mikel, pulling a surprise. It's just not going to happen. So as long as there's no injuries that we don't know about yet, obviously, the 11 that I think we'll see start tonight, David Raya in goal, then it will be Timber, Saliba, Kivior, Lewis Skelly. So the same back four that we saw last week. Then Partey comes back into midfield. That allows Rice to move up alongside Odegaard in the two, and they'll be occupying the 2-8 positions. Then Saka on the right, Marino goes up front, meaning Trossard drops to the bench, and Martinelli obviously on the left-hand side. And I think, again, as we saw last week, the wide areas are going to be so important in terms of how Arsenal attack and how they defend as well. The fullbacks are going to have to be on it. Thomas Partey is going to have a really, really good game in front of the back four. And then when Arsenal do attack down the flanks, they can get Martinelli and Saka in behind their fullbacks. And that's where the space is. That's where they can really, really hurt PSG potentially. And having Marino there, that sort of presence in and around the penalty area to potentially bring the ball down with his back to goal and play in the runners, then, you got a chance. So that's my predicted 11 for tonight. Raya in goal, Timber, Saliba, Kivior, Lewis Skelly, Partey, Odegaard, Rice, Saka, Marino, and Martinelli. Last night's game, the semi-final, I really hope you all saw it, because if you didn't, you missed something very, very special. It was just football at its most chaotic, brutal best. It was just unbelievable. From half time onwards, I mean, the first half was good. I really enjoyed the first half, and it looked like until we're going to be cruising it. Barcelona weren't really the game until we're picking them off. Barcelona's crazy, crazy high line was just getting themselves into all sorts of trouble. Inter could have scored 4 or 5 if they were just a little bit more sensible, but they did get through twice. Obviously got the penalty from the second one, picked them off with the first one with Martinez scoring, and he thought it was game over. But then the second half, from the start, the way Barcelona came into it, picked themselves up off the floor, got themselves in front. Inter, I thought, were just playing crazy in that second half. They completely lost their heads. They were giving their ball away literally time and time again. Every time they tried to play out, they were just getting, the ball was turned over and it kept coming back at them. They couldn't get out, and eventually Barcelona broke them down, got themselves level, made it 3-2 at the end. You thought it was game over, and then Inter score the way they do at the end with a 37-year-old centre-back sent up front to just produce the most amazing finish right on the end to take it to extra time. And then they go on and win 4-3. It was just an unbelievable game. It was the type of game that comes around once every 5, 6, 7 years that just you are glued to the TV. And fair play to Inter Milan, because they looked done and dusted. When Rafinha scored, you thought that was it. It was game, set and match. Inter looked like they had nothing left. Their legs had gone. And somehow the way they just refused to die and came back and got themselves level and then went again in the extra time. They were so strong for part of extra time anyway. And I just didn't think they had any legs left with about 10 minutes to go of normal time. And I think the game tonight, I can't see it being anywhere near as chaotic as what we saw last night. Yesterday, you had that mix of two completely different styles of play. And whenever Barcelona are involved, I just think Barcelona's style of football is so crazy. It's so mad in terms of how they play their defence that if you come up against a good team who are just a bit sensible, they should be able to pick them off time and time again every time they go forward, basically, because the Barcelona is just crazy how they play that line. And it just all those things came together to produce this unbelievable spectacle. I don't see it happening tonight, something like that. But what that game showed you last night is that anything can happen in football. Unfortunately, it showed you that the home side, again, tends to come out on top in the second leg. That's something we don't want tonight, obviously. And I think San Siro and the crowd and everything played their part in somehow sort of lifting Inter to be able to go again last night when it looked like they were dead and buried. So that wasn't a great sign. But what was just that how anything can happen at any moment when a game looks done and dusted as it did last night. First, it looked done and dusted for Barcelona, and then it looked done and dusted for Inter. Then suddenly it turned again. That just showed something that tonight you hang in there, you stay in there. Big moments can just happen like that and a game can turn. And I think Arsenal need to take something from that as well. It is not over until the final whistle goes. And that's the sort of attitude that Arsenal have to take tonight. And whoever wins plays Inter in the final. And that's going to be a really difficult test because you kind of look at how... No, I've watched Inter. I watched the game against Bayern Munich. I watched the second half against Bayern Munich in the second leg in the last round. And I still don't know how Inter got through that game, but they did. They found a way to win. Bayern missed chances and Inter somehow found a way to win, and they got through. It was exactly the same last night. When you see games like that and sort of team progressing through to the final like that, you start to think, is this their year? Is it the year of the stars aligning for Inter Milan to win? It'll be very difficult to play against them in the final. Arsenal have already lost to them this season, of course. But that's what you're gonna have to do. If Arsenal get through tonight, you got to find a way of beating this Inter Milan team, who are riding a bit of a crest of the wave in this tournament at the moment. But yeah, fabulous game of football. Thank you so much to Inter Milan and Barcelona for entertaining us the way they did last night. Right, before we wrap this one up today, just a few comments from you guys to take us into the final few hours of today. Scott, first of all, says, hey Charles, I'm watching the other semi-final tonight and I'd love us to play Saka the way Barca play Yamal. Give him the freedom to not track back. You'd probably need to swap Odegaard and Rice in the middle to compensate defensively, but we need to try something differently tactically in our game tonight. It was mad how Barca's tactics kind of yesterday, where it felt like were just get the ball to Yamal. It was like the 17-year-old kid, the youngest kid on the pitch, but that's the personality and that's how good he is already at his age. It was just like get the ball to Yamal, see if he can do something special for us, and he very nearly did with that shot that Sommer made a brilliant save from late on, which looked like it was going to make it 4-4. Just what a player he is, unbelievable. And you're right, he doesn't have much defensive responsibility on his hands, but that's probably why it doesn't help when they concede 4 goals when your forwards don't have that defensive responsibility. So kind of double-edged sword, if you see what I mean. Nick says, if it were me, given the game plan, it would be man-marking job on Dembele for the player with the greatest concentration. Thing is, if you do that, you kind of take a player out of the game. Say you stick... I mean, it would probably be Rice, wouldn't it? But, how do you do that? I mean, maybe it'd have to be Sleeve. If only we had Martin Keown, there was no one better at doing that job than him. But if you do that, you kind of take a player out of the game. And because all they're doing then is watching Dembele rather than trying to influence the game themselves. So I'm not sure that'll be the case. You say, remember, we look dangerous when we carry the ball. If we are brave and work hardest, we will win by a couple of goals. Their defense have mistakes in them. Come on, you Gunners, let's have it. Thank you very much, Nick, for that one. Few more now. Jelly Belly says, we all know Paris will fly out of the traps at us looking to kill the tie. I wonder if Mikel has a plan to target that. Should we have the kickoff? Could we surprise them and hit them with an early transition? That's what we want to see in this game. Arsenal are so good in possession and can control a game, but I feel our transitional game needs work. That is where the game will be won or lost, in my opinion. And Paul says, late to view. I am here in Paris, ready for an epic Arsenal away performance. To everyone going, try and stay in stealth cover shirt until in the ground. It's going to be hostile. Yeah, everyone in Paris, if you're watching this, Paul, and anyone else watching it today or listening to it, who are over in Paris for the game, be safe out there, because it is not the easiest place to watch football as an away fan. Very, very different to Munich. John says, good morning each. Here we go. We need chaos football, long balls in behind, instant shooting on target, no dithering on throw-ins, etc. either, unless we are winning. An old style FA Cup game. Make it so. Thank you very much for everyone for getting in touch ahead of tonight's game. That's it from me. Enjoy it, everyone, wherever you're watching or listening to it. I'm not there. Obviously, there's going to be no live updates for me on social media. I'm going around my dad's to watch it, hopefully to have a very, very special night with him, celebrating Arsenal reaching the Champions League final. I'll be back in the morning with the review show. You want to get involved in that, come back after full time with your thoughts on what you have just seen. Until then, good luck, everyone. See you on the other side. Bye-bye.